Okay. I'm gonna start by just talking to you guys about what the lineup card is. I'm gonna go through a ground rules demonstration of how it's gonna be handled. And then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show a DP Flex PowerPoint presentation. And then we're gonna go into a lineup card PowerPoint presentation where we're gonna go through an entire game. And it's gonna have 14 players on that team, and I'm gonna show you how one player you can get them in about 3 or 4 times each into that game. All right. The lineup cards, guys, you all see them, they're all in front of us. They all have to be filled out a certain way. When we fill them out, you got to make sure that all starting players will be written in the top, and all of our subs are down the bottom. Very simple. All players in your game must have their first initial and last name. You can write first name and last initial, but they want first initial, last name. I know it takes an extra 3 minutes of your time, but that's the way it's got to be done. Every player's number must be on the lineup card, and every starting player's position. So you'll see I have in the position column, they're all written down as numbers. Position 6, 3, 5. You can write LF for left field, RF for right field if you want, C for catcher, P for pitcher, 1, 2, and 3 for first, second, and third, and SS for shortstop, if that's easier for you. Or you can write the number system down. Whatever, if you know the number system, you can write the number system down. You do not need to have positions for your subs because we don't know what positions they're going to be. And the starting positions are only relevant for the first inning. They're only relevant for the first inning. Once we start the game and you get to the second inning, you can switch your players per position as many times as you want, and you don't even have to report that to the umpire. Okay? It's because the reason why we have these is for your pitcher and catcher in the first inning. Whoever you wrote down as your pitcher and catcher, they're the only ones that are eligible for a courtesy runner in that first inning. So if you are the team who's batting first, the visitors, we don't really know who your pitcher is except for this. So that's who your pitcher and catcher is until you put them on the field. All right. And you can add a player to the lineup at any time during the game. Okay? So if you have Sally who's coming from a Hallahan game, and she's a away game up at Lansdale Catholic, and she's got to go back to the school, get to the school, and get to your game, and she doesn't show up until the 5th inning, she can be put in the substitution lineup and then subbed right in if you needed to do that. Okay? At any time you can put a girl in the game. All right. Any questions on those things? Nope, we're good? Okay. So what I'm going to do is we have ground rules. I'm going to read through them real fast, what I wrote down, and then I'm going to demonstrate one. Ground rules. You come to ground rules with the lineup card filled out. The umpires will take each of the cards. They'll review it. They'll give the card back to the head coach. The head coach will double check it. When the coach gives it back to the umpire, at that point they are official. And then they are your official game cards. And you are allowed to make a change at that exact point. So what I'm going to do is, real fast, is I'm going to show a little quick demonstration of how I would do it as an umpire. And I'm going to use Dennis, bring your lineup card, and Scott, bring your lineup card. Coach is up. I'm Jim Stewart. Jim Stewart. Step back, please. Everybody's going to see it. I'm proud of my space. All right, Coach, here we go. What I'm checking is I'm making sure they have each starting position. First base, second base. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're using a DP Flex, is that correct? Your DP is Jim Stewart, the best player in the league. Batting fourth. And your Flex is Maria Hartwell in the 10th spot, is that correct?
Yes.
Double check that for me. Here we go. Same thing, you got the same lineup as him, this is all correct. All right, everything's in here. Using DP Flex also, Jim Stewart again, the best player is fourth, and Maria Hartwell, check that for me. Well, you'll put them as you go along.
We're good.
You're good? All right, you're good? Perfect. They're official at this time. Any changes? No, no changes? Okay. And then I would do my ground rules as if you know, as everybody knows they are at that point. So I'm good. Thank you guys.
Is that a multi-copy?
No, they're going to get a multi-copy. The one we gave you is a photocopy. Now, guys, you can make a change at that point The only time you would really make a change is if you had the DP flex and you were saying, I'm going to put my DP in for my flex. That's the only change I've ever seen at that exact moment. I don't even know the benefit of why a coach does that. I've seen it happen 100 times, and I never even understand why a coach does it. So I can't sit here and tell you this is the reason why. I don't know. But that's the only sub that people do at that time. But you are allowed to make changes at that exact point.
Just one question.
Go ahead.
If they had a DP,
Yes.
there has to be a flex, correct?
Correct. And if you're going to use your DP flex, they have to be on your starting lineup. You can't come in the third inning and say, you know what, I'm going to do a DP flex now. If you only gave me your 9 players to start, that is it. That's what you're using for the entire game. We'll get into that in a little bit. All right.
One more question?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Lisa, go. We'll give you first.
Do we give a line card to the other coach too?
You'll see, yeah, here guys, when the lineup cards that we're going to provide for you for all your games, they're going to be multi-copied. They'll be carbon copied. You're going to have 4 different copies. So you'll give one to the umpire, you will give one to the opposing team, and then there'll be 2 extra copies. They're supposed to be for a scorekeeper and yourself. So there'll be 4 copies. So give one to the other team, give one to the umpire. I would suggest give one of the first 2 to the umpire and the other team, because they're the clearest ones to read. I mean, as they get to the bottom, you may lose a little, like the writing on it gets a little more dimmer and dimmer, and you know your own player, so you might want to keep that one for yourself. So I would take the white one and the yellow one, rip them off, give it to the umpire, give it to the opposing team. That's when we'll get the lineups.
The other thing is using ink on no carbon required paper sometimes is difficult, so the top copy
I'm all
is best
good.
to give to the umpire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Ben.
Thank you.
Must the other team's book wait for that to be done?
They will wait for that to be done, correct, yes. And then they'll give it to them.
Sure.
So I suggest that you get a parent or somebody to write that down for you. We can start the game, and as they come up the bat, you can write them down. It's not the end of the world, but that's when we do it. Any questions on that before I go on to substitutions? Nope? Okay. All right, substitutions. All subs will be listed in the bottom half of the lineup card, as we discussed. When you sub a player in, she is locked into that spot in the lineup card. What that means is, so we're going to take Jan Ward on the bottom. She's our first sub. If I end up subbing Jan in to the number 5 spot, which is for Mr. Benson, if I make that sub, then if I take Jan back out, she's only allowed to go back into the 5 slot again. She is locked into the 5 slot. She cannot be subbed into the 5 slot and then come out and go back to the 6 slot. That's not legal. If she goes into the 5th, she's stuck in the 5th for the rest of the game. She can come out and back in, but it has to be into that 5th slot. Yes?
Player you took out.
See, same thing. When that player comes out of that spot, Mr. Benson, if he comes back in, he must come back into that 5th slot.
But they don't have to play in that position, they can play in any position in the field.
On defense position, correct. And what the question was, can she play in, can Mr. Benson or whatever play in any position? You guys can play in any position you want. That's, once we start the game, that's irrelevant. You don't even have to let me know that your third base is going to first and first is going to right field, that's irrelevant to me. I only need to know who's leaving these spots. It's the only thing I need to know. If you're taking a player out of here and putting someone in, that's important to me. What position they play in there is irrelevant to me. Yes, please.
Do we have to tell you when we're subbing them out? Tell you and the other coach the same as we would tell them like to what?
Correct. Now, your main person you have to tell is the umpire. It's actually in the umpire's responsibility to tell the other head coach. I mean, you can be courtesy. You can have a courtesy, say, hey, listen, I'm subbing 15 for 3. And as you're walking to third base, say, coach, 15 for 3. Just letting you know. I mean, that helps out the process, but the umpire's responsibility is to take the sub from you and report that sub to the head coach of the other team, to the opposing team. So as long as you tell that umpire, you're off the hook if something comes up. Yes.
Is there a limit to how many times you're allowed to sub in and out?
Okay, the question was, is there a limit to how many times you can sub a player in? Everybody can re-enter one time. So you can come in the game, you can leave the game, and come in the game. So when you turn in your lineup to me, them top people, the top 8, 9, or 10 people, that is the first time they've come into the game. So they are allowed to leave and come back. The subs on the bottom, they have not been in the game yet. So once you sub them in, that is the first time they entered. Then they can leave and they can re-enter. So everybody can re-enter one time into the game. Every player.
Is there a requirement that everybody has to bat?
The question was, is there a requirement that everybody has to bat? In the 12U, everybody has to play in the game. In the 12U. In the 14s and up, it is highly recommended that we let you girls get in the game. Okay, we're not holding that to you in the 14Us and up. If you decide you don't want to play a player because it doesn't work out for you, you're going to deal with the parent if they're yelling at you, not us. But it's not your requirement to get the girls in the game. In the 12U, you're required to have the girls get into the game. Okay?
From an administrative viewpoint, 11 subs for number 8
Okay.
in your case there.
In number 8. Where's your number 8?
Benson, that example you used.
He's number 7. He's position number 8.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
7. So as the umpire, over on the right where it says subs,
Yes.
in that first block, you're putting in number 11.
I'm going to show a demonstration on how we do
okay.
all that later on.
All right.
I got a big PowerPoint on that.
Sorry.
Tamer.
Nah,
Oh, you just waving at me? Bye.
how you doing?
All right, when you sub a player in, she is locked into that position, which we just discussed. When a player re-enters the game, she can only return to the same spot in the lineup, which we just discussed. All players can re-enter the game once, which we just discussed. All substitutes must be reported to the home plate umpire. Another thing, guys, we don't take up-and-coming subs. For example, let's say you sub a player in and you're just going to have her run the bases. You're like, I'm going to have her run, say, and I'm going to put her back, I'm going to re-enter the other girl as soon as the inning's over. We don't take that until you put her back in. Because we're going to forget, we're never going to write it down, and then someone's going to say there's an unreported sub in there, and it's going to be because it was bad communication between the coach and the umpire. So if you're going to re-enter somebody later on in the game, don't tell me that's going to happen. Tell me when it happens, because I'm going to forget as an umpire. I've done it many times. I was like, okay, yeah, I got you. And as soon as the inning's over, I just put the thing in my pocket and I watch pitches, and I forget all about it. So you want to make sure you tell the umpire when it happens. Also, another good tip when you're going to sub someone in, if you're going to sub a player, say you're going to go into the 5th inning and your team's up to bat, you say, I'm going to sub the next 3 batters on my lineup. 12, 74, and 13 are out, and I'm going to put 11, 44, 30 in. I wouldn't do that. This is why I wouldn't do that. I would tell me every sub as they came up to bat. Because I had a coach do that in the college game. She said, I got these 2 subs in. I said, okay, I wrote them down. Boom, boom. So the batter came up to bat first. The on-deck batter was over there. And then the batter hit the on-deck batter in the face and took her out. And now she couldn't play. And they didn't have a girl to sub her back in. So they had to take it out for that. So I would recommend, tell me I'm going to do it, but as each one comes in, say, Jen, here we go, 74 for 13. And as the next girl comes to bat, 44 for 13, Jim. And as the next one comes up to bat, Jim, just so you know, 13, like we said, for this. So tell me them as they come up to bat. I'm just going to save you that one. I had that happen once, so it's probably a good rule of thumb to substitute as it happens. Okay. This is for the umpires. When a coach is giving you a sub, don't let the coach leave until you have completed this written down stuff in your paperwork. Because you're going to forget it. A coach is going to know what he wants. He's going to say, hey, Jim, 13 for 5. He's going to keep walking. You're going to say, oh, okay. By the time you get it out, you're going to look. You're going to pull the wrong teams out and go, wait, there's no 13. Wait a second, hold on. Go to the other one. You're going to say, oh, wait. What did he want? 13 for what? And then you got to go ask him. So make sure that coach stays with you and say, okay, let me make this straight. If they have their names written down, repeat the names back to the coach. Okay? So if the coach says, Jim, 30's in for 13. Don't say, okay, 30 for 13. I'll say, okay, so you got Miss Buchanan in for Miss Graham. Is that correct? And then she'll say, oh, no, not Miss Graham. I said number 13, Miss Busetti. You're like, oh no, you have her number written down here as 13. She's like, oh, I got the wrong number written down. So she may know the players and have the wrong number. So repeat the name of the player back to that coach. Because if there's a mistake, you guys can fix it right there, and no one knows the better, and then you can just move on, and then you can report the right sub to the other team. All right? That's a good rule of thumb. When you report a sub, make sure you go to the opposing team, which I discussed a little bit ago. Okay? Courtesy runners. Guys, for coaches, this is going to be your saving grace to getting players in the game more and more. Okay, a courtesy runner. You can have a courtesy runner for the pitcher and catcher only. Every time the pitcher and catcher get on base from batting, you can put a courtesy runner in for them. There is a little restriction though. The courtesy runner can only be a player that has not been entered into the game yet. So on the bottom we got our subs, our 4 subs. Jan Ward, 11, 44, 30, 22. As long as they have not been subbed into the game, you can use them as a courtesy runner.
Inning number 1, my pitcher hits, she's on the base. Inning number 2, she hits a triple or a double. Do I have to use that courtesy runner, or can I wait for that? Go ahead.
You don't have to, no. And his question was, let's say in the first inning his pitcher gets on base and he wants a courtesy run for her. And then the second inning he decides she gets on base, he says, you know what, I don't want to put a courtesy runner in. You know, she's a fast runner, I got no one in front of her, I'm going to have her steal 2 bases. Then I'll put a courtesy runner in for her, you know. So he does not have to put a courtesy runner in for her. But that's your choice. So he doesn't have to. Did that answer your question? Yes. Yes.
Can courtesy runner only be used once?
Can your courtesy runner only be used once? No. You can use a courtesy runner, guys. Here's how it works. When one person is put in for a courtesy, so we're going to say Jan Ward. She was courtesy for the pitcher in the first inning. Now Jan Ward can only courtesy for the pitcher the rest of the game. She cannot courtesy for the catcher. Once you are a courtesy runner for one person, for one position, you are, they call that married to that position. You're stuck with that position. But multiple people can courtesy run for the pitcher. So I could have Jan Ward courtesy run for the pitcher in the first, and Trish Dunn courtesy run in the second inning, and then go back to Jan Ward in the 5th inning to courtesy run for the pitcher. And it's the same thing with the catcher. I could have the catcher for the other 2. However you want to work it. Yes.
So now, after, because if Jan goes in for Benson, can she still be a courtesy runner if you take her back out of the game? Or does that count as one of her times to go back in?
Okay.
Because she's married to both of those spots.
Okay, here's the question she had. Jan Ward, she was a courtesy in the first inning, and then in the second inning, she was subbed into the game. Once she was subbed in, she can no longer be a courtesy runner for anybody because she has been into the game. Once she comes back out, she cannot courtesy run again because she has been put into the game.
What if you need a courtesy runner and you don't have anybody that didn't play?
And your pitcher and catcher bunny. And her question was, what if you don't have a courtesy runner left? Which is probably going to happen in 1 or 2 of your games. If you don't have a courtesy runner, then your pitcher and catcher runs. Yes.
You change pitchers. You said you're married to that
To
pitcher.
the position. You're married to the position. So it can be anybody. That's a great question. Anybody you sub into the pitching position gets that same courtesy runner that's a pitcher. Because the person's married to the position, not the specific player that was a pitcher at the time. Anybody, you could have a different pitcher every inning, and Jan Ward can courtesy run for each time for that different person. Did that answer your question? Yes.
What about if a runner gets hurt, courtesy runner for them, and if you don't have any courtesy runners left?
That's a really good question right there. I think by rule, it's something we didn't discuss as a board yet, how we want to deal with that. By rule, you're on your own, but I think we could work something out where if on an injury situation, the coaches can get together and work, maybe we'll work something out with that. We didn't even discuss that. We've been so busy with so many other things. I would bring that up and talk about that. That's a great point.
Or a courtesy runner, because you can only have one for your pitcher and your catcher, but a player that gets hurt. You have courtesy runners. Now, are they married to that one?
Oh, no. So you're saying, say you have some people that are down there eligible to go in, and you have an injured person, then you want to sub that, you have to sub a person into that
But
position.
that's the only person they can run for?
That's it.
Okay.
That's called a pitch runner though, isn't it?
Oh, that would be a substitution. We don't. It would be a
So they're
substitution.
now in the game for that person?
What's up now?
So they would be now in the game for that
In the
person,
game for
not
that-
just running for them?
Not just running for them. They are actually in the game for that person at that point.
Is there anything wrong with, Curtis wrong with anybody else?
Yes, that's a great question. Is there a certain number of outs? No. You can, if the first bat is a pitcher, she gets on base, and you can courtesy run for it right there. It doesn't matter how many outs. You can courtesy run at any time, as long as it's for the pitcher and catcher. Yes.
Say the pitcher's the first batter, and they bat him out, and the pitcher has to bat again after they have courtesy run. Same pitcher bats?
Yes.
Is there an out limit for the game?
3. We took it in the 3 rule. I'm only teasing. What do you, I'm sorry.
Mercy rule.
Is there a mercy rule? Yes, there is a mercy rule. It's in our agency. We'll discuss it in another meeting. I just want to go over the lineup card stuff today. Any other questions on courtesy runners? Because we're going to do a demonstration on here and show you how they get in and get out. So that may better answer any questions you guys may have. We good with that? Okay.
One quick.
Yes, one quick one.
When they have to announce it's the courtesy runner, because it could be a substitution as well.
Correct. That's a great point Dennis brought up. When you're putting a courtesy runner in, you still got to report that to the plate umpire. Because the umpire can let you know if you're making a mistake. Like say you put a person in and take them out, and then you're like, oh, I want a courtesy, and you're making a mistake, the plate umpire can talk you through before you make that mistake and set you straight. So you still got to report that. You still have to report that. Now, if it's the same courtesy runner every single time, it'll be a lot quicker. Like in the 3rd inning, you're like, Jim, I got 13 for the pitcher again, run it. Okay, all that I'm going to do is look at it, make sure that you did have 13. I'll probably remember, but it'll be a quick thing. Who had a question? Nobody? Okay, I'm going to move on to our possible lineups. A straight 9 lineup, guys. I would believe that is going to be 90% of all of our lineup cards that you're going to see. And a straight 9 lineup card is not like this. This is the DP Flex, the one he handed out. A straight 9 will only have your 9 starters in the starting position and all your subs down here. When that happens, it's very simple. We discussed how you substitute. You only substitute into each spot, bump, 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 and you're locked into that spot. Any questions on a straight 9? That's the easiest one to do. The DP Flex. That's the one that we wrote right here. Anytime there's a DP Flex, guys, as we wrote here, you'll notice that in the 10 slot, that's your flex. Anytime you have the DP Flex, you're going to put the flex in the 10 spot. The flex will always be a defensive position. Be first base, second base, third base, a pitcher, whatever you want her to be. But your flex has to be in the 10 spot because she doesn't bat. You're only going to bat 1 through 9, and 1 through 9, and 1 through 9. That last batter on the lineup does not bat. At this point, you could put her in the bat. We'll discuss that. So if you have a flex, you have to have a DP. So in the position in the 1 through 9 slot, you're going to have to pick somebody for your DP. It can be any player you want, but it'll be your DP. So if there's a flex, there has to be a DP. All right. I'm going to read now what I wrote, some points. The flex and the DP, I call them twins. To me, they're twins because one plays defense and one bats. But I consider them the same person almost. The flex is always listed in the 10 spot. The flex plays defense for the DP. The DP plays offense for the flex. Very simple. If you sub the flex in for the DP or the DP for the flex, they will always go into the DP spot in the lineup card. And let me explain that to you. So you can start with 10 and then decide in the 5th inning or 3rd inning, you want to put the flex in for the DP. So you say, hey Jim, I'm going to sub the flex in for the DP. So if you're doing that, you're removing the DP from the game because you're saying the flex is in for the DP. So when that happens, the flex is in the 10 spot over here. The flex will move from the 10 slot into, in this case, the 4 slot where the DP was. Okay? And now we're down to 9. So the DP has left the game and the flex has moved up into the DP slot. Judy.
And they're considered a substitute, is that right?
It is a substitute, yes, it is considered a substitute. And the DP is the only one who has left the game because the flex is still in the game. She has not left. So if you go in the next inning and say, hey Jim, I'm going to put my DP back, I'm going to re-enter my DP. So the flex will come back down to the 10 slot and the DP comes back into that slot. And the only person that's the re-enter for the DP, and the flex has never left the game. She has never left the game. She has stayed in the game consistently. So you could still take the flex out and put her back in. That would be her re-enter.
Now,
Yes.
could you sub somebody else for her?
Yes, you're saying while that sub's in there.
Like, I can take Maria out as my flex player,
Oh.
put another person.
Yeah, that's perfect. Here's the question that she had, which is a great question. Keeping it at 10, saying we don't sub the flex, but saying we keep it at 10, can I just sub someone in for Maria, who is the flex? At any time you can do that. That's just a sub into that position.
So, but then it's still just that one position and they can only move in.
That's
and out.
correct. So if you put Jan Ward into number 11 into that spot, when you take Maria back in, Jan can only come into that spot in the 10th
Okay,
slot.
But I
so
can't
now
pitch,
if
so she'll
That's
right.
right.
Don't let her
Taking
substitute me.
my DP out, can I sub somebody into that spot or it can only be that person? Or is that the same just like any other position, or does my flex automatically have to go there?
Okay, no. You could just sub in. Here's a question. It was a great question.
There's some on the
If
bar.
I want to take the DP out and I want to keep it at 10, can I sub someone in for the DP? Which, yes, you can do that. You don't have to just sub the flex in for the DP. You can sub someone in for the flex and leave the DP in there, or sub someone in for the DP and leave the flex and keep your 10. You could do that at any time. Is your question? Okay.
Can it be someone you already took out of the game?
Can it be someone you already took out of the game?
They
No,
already
because
had
they're already in line.
They're only game one.
No, well, here's the thing. Once you go into a slot, the 5 slot,
Okay, I got
you can only come back into the 5 slot. So,
you. Yeah, I asked that.
yeah, okay, no problem. It's all new information for everybody. Wayne?
The flex player at the beginning of the game, the only place they could ever back in the game would be in the DP's back.
Correct. That's a great point. So, guys,
So that would be easier. So basically, what making somebody a flex player does is limit their ability to move somewhere
this is
else.
correct. So, what Wayne's question was a good point, was when you put the flex in, and in this point, the flex obviously are in 10, which they're always going to be in the 10, and the DP is in the 4 slot. If the flex is ever going to bat, she has to come into the 4 slot. Okay? She has to come into the 4 slot in order for her to bat. It's the only that's her restriction she has. Okay, do we understand all that up to this point? Okay, Judy.
But then, if you're moving around like that, then that's not a removal and re-entry, right?
If I move the flex down to the 4 slot and then bring her back in, and she has never left the game, then she has not been subbed.
Right.
She can leave and come back. Perfect.
You can do that in many times.
As many times as long as you don't go over the re-enter rule.
But the DP's has.
The DP, then you'd have to put a new sub in for the DP the next time she comes in. Okay, guys, I'm going to explain one thing that I hope it doesn't sound tricky, but it's probably the trickiest part of this whole thing. So now the DP is in the position department, okay? It's considered a defensive position, okay? You can switch a player into the DP slot, or not into the DP slot. You can treat the position of DP as a defensive position. And what I mean is this. So, the catcher's number 2. I gotta explain. The catcher's number 2, and that's Lisa Barra. So I decide I don't want Lisa to catch anymore, but she's got a great bat, so I want to keep her in the game. So you can say, hey, Jim, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to make Lisa the DP, and Jim Stewart, he's going to catch. So the DP, as a position, is all you have to treat it as a defensive position. Any person can be the DP in the 1 through 9. Okay? Yes. It is not considered sub because we don't even, it's just a defensive change. That's all that it is. I would report it to the umpire just so, I would report that to the umpire so that way when you, just so he knows what's going on. But it's not like anything you can be penalized for. Tamer.
If you're saying you're treating like a defensive position, right?
Yes.
And you just swapped out Lisa Barron because you didn't want her in the game.
I don't want her catching. She hurt her knee.
You want her to catch it. Catching's defense, isn't it? So why would you switch her to the DP?
Don't ask why I'm switching her. You umpire, I'll coach the team. No, but listen, I was just making something up. The point of it is this, guys. The DP is a defensive, it's considered on the position lineup as a defensive position. So if you decide, I told you this part can seem a little tricky until you do it once or twice, and then it'll make sense to you. And all you need to, you can switch first base to DP and DP to first base, just like it's a defensive position. Just like it's a defensive position. Yes.
Technically, that just means it's no different than moving 2 to 3.
That's right. It's like moving first base to third base, or third base to shortstop, or shortstop to DP. Like you can just use it as a defensive position. Saying that, the flex still can only come into the original DP slot. So in the start of the game, Jay Stewart, me, I'm the DP, so the flex can only come into the 4 slot. It doesn't matter who you make the DP later on in that game. I am only allowed to come into the 4 slot. I knew I was going to have you all until we got to that.
You don't need the whole spot, you need a DP spot.
No.
It just happens to be the first spot.
Yes, yes.
But for the whole game, the flex can only go to that spot for the whole
That's
game.
it. That's the
Even
only.
if you sub out the flex and everything like that, he gets, the new flex can only still go into that.
Yeah, that's it. The new flex is locked into that spot with the DP. I know that sounds a little tricky. I was actually thinking about not even bringing that up, but I think it's a good point because someone's going to figure out how to do it.
So where does Lisa go if she's not catching and she hurt her knee when I want her in that spot? Does she
She's
have
only
to play
batting.
the field?
No.
She only is batting.
So that's her question. She says, so what happens to Lisa? I'm making Lisa the DP. Well, Lisa does not leave the game. She only bats. She does not play the field. She doesn't play defense. She only bats. Good?
So as an I'm sorry.
Judy.
Any movement among the top 10, those aren't considered substitutions. You can move them around, they're just not a substitution.
Correct. But the flex is restricted only to move, like, yeah, you mean defensive position.
For batting only.
For batting purposes only, yes.
For re-entry though, they're not, and you can move any along the top 10, and they're not considered re-entry.
Correct.
So,
Yes, Dennis.
so as an umpire,
Guys,
when that switch occurs, the DP for the catcher, are we notating it on here? Do we need to notate that?
you can. I don't know. I would only, I wouldn't even worry about it.
That's what I'm, because the batting order
It's
is
irrelevant.
still the batting order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on the DP? Because I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation on it. Is there any questions you guys have on what I just said? I can answer for you? No? Okay. All right. All right, guys, listen. First thing is I expect everybody's field to look like this. Yeah? Is that possible? No? All right. Yeah, you can go.
Jim, can we settle for 30% of the time?
30%? I'll get one game. All right, guys, here we go. The DP flex. I consider them twins. You can't have one without the other. All right? The DP is the dominant twin. She was born first. She should be first in the lineup. The DP has more privileges, which we discussed. She can move. A DP can be anybody as a defensive position. They have the right to move all around. The flex is the weaker, she was born second. She has fewer privileges. She can only move to one spot. She can only sub in at the 4 slot or wherever the DP is. I'm using the 4 slot only because that's what our lineup card says. If the Twins are in the game, they must be in the starting lineup. If they are not in the starting lineup, there will never be Twins in the game. We discussed that. Each Twin lives in her own slot in the lineup. And the 10 slot belongs to the flex, and the DP belongs to whatever slot you want. 1 through 9, whatever you want it to be. The DP is the offensive position. She bats. The DP must play offense to be in the game. She has not left the game until she has left the lineup. So we discussed that. So if you say to me, Jim, the DP's in for the flex. So that means the flex left the game and the DP stayed in the game. And the DP will stay in her slot, which will be the 4th slot in this case. And the flex has left the game. The DP has not left the game. Okay. The flex is a defensive position. The flex must play defense to be in the game. She has not left the game until she has left the lineup, like we discussed. If you say the flex is in for the DP, you move her down to the DP slot, the DP has left the game. And if you put them back in, the flex stayed in the game. The flex can never just be an offensive player. She can never just play offense. If she was to come down into the 4th slot, she's going to play offense and defense at that point. She'll never not be just playing offense. Yeah. Each Twin can leave the lineup card and return once. They have the same privileges as every other player. You can re-enter the game 1 time. This is their re-entry. Same as any starter and same as any sub. The privileges for both the Twins. Each Twin may play for her sister. We discussed that. Either the flex can be in for the DP or the DP can be in for the flex. If a Twin plays for her sister, she forces her sister to leave the game. If she comes in for one, the one's booted out. Privileges for the Twin, the DP. The DP can play defense for any position in the lineup, like we discussed. You could just say, hey Jim, the first baseman is now going to be the DP and the DP is going to be the first base. So you can move that DP anywhere along the DP. That's what I was talking to you guys about. The DP can move just like a defensive position. Not the flex, her sister. The flex cannot do that. That player continues to bat but does not play defense. She has not left the game. She is like a position player. So, for example, what that means is pretty much is if you say I'm going to make the first baseman the DP and the DP is going to be a first baseman, I'm going to make that swap. The DP is now, the original DP is now is a position like first base, second base, third base, shortstop, which it's a little bit more confusing of what we just discussed. Yeah. The lesser privileges for the other Twin, the flex. The flex can only play offense for her sister, the DP. So if she was to come into the game, she has to come to the original DP slot. It's the only place that she can play offense for. Did I miss a feedback?
No, you just said it.
Did I say okay?
There you go.
Keys to the Twins. A substitute for a Twin becomes that Twin, which we just said. One in for the other in for that one. The sub has all the privileges that the Twin had. So, if you say the flex is in for the DP, so now she has all the privileges that the DP had, but you're down to 9. Okay. When the Twin plays for each other, there are only 9 in the game. The game can go from 10 to 9 and 9 to 10 and back and forth all game long. So that means you can put the flex in for the DP and then say, next inning, I'm going to re-enter the DP, now you're back to 10. And then you put the flex in for the DP, and then you can sub in for the DP because they have a re-entry rule. You can do this as many times as long as you don't go over your one-time re-entry. This is sort of what a field should look like. Now this was, what was it, the D2, this is some big, I thought these were little pictures. But the first picture was what the ground rule sort of looks like. They had the coaches and captains, and we said we're doing coaches and captains, right? We're doing coaches and captains, all right? So I just thought they were fun little pictures to do. From the D2, I think, finals, to get into the World Series. They won apparently.
Somebody won.
All right. So now we're gonna do is there's any questions on that stuff before I go on to the lineup part? And then we'll be done. Nope. All right,
What impact does coaches and captains have?
there's no major impact.
Can captains talk?
You don't have to have a captain. Okay, we say coaches and captains. I love when coaches and captains come up. To me, this teaches certain girls a little something extra. Like, for example, when we go over ground rules,